In June 1794, a handful of Presbyterians met in Hines Hotel in Niagara-on-the-Lake, on the corner of King and Front Streets. It was resolved that as religion is the foundation of all societies, that a Presbyterian church should be erected in the town of Newark, and that subscriptions for that purpose should immediately be set afoot. This is the opening entry in the original session record. This led to the establishment of the first Presbyterian congregation in Niagara. By November 1794, construction had begun on a Presbyterian church, the first in the town. The members had crossed the ocean to follow their religious principles, to build a new life, and to live that life in peace. When times were hard, when tragedy struck or sorrow, they needed a place to go, a sacred place to where they could connect with God, to rebuild strength and give them the hope and will to carry on. The church community gave them those things. The church was there in times of joy too. The exchange of marriage vows, the baptism of a child, the return of a loved one from the war, thanksgiving for a good harvest, and the very happiness of thanking God for simply being alive. Unfortunately, in August 1813, the church was burned down by the occupying American army during the War of 1812. The Americans knew that the 60-foot belfry was an ideal lookout if the British and Canadians recaptured the town, and so it was burned. Luckily, the schoolhouse escaped the burning, and so for the next 18 years or so, the congregation met there for worship, here on the north corner of the church property. The Reverend Robert McGill was introduced as the new minister of this congregation in 1829. Under his guidance, the Presbyterians of Niagara built this fine new church with the foundation stone laid on May 31st, 1831. After a cyclone struck the sanctuary in 1855, it was rebuilt under the direction of Kaivis Tully. A metal Gabriel sat at the very top of the steeple. During the storm, it fell to the ground, and for over 40 years, it was stored in a barn before it was donated to the Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum. Major restorations were undertaken in 1937 and again in 1991. Today, both the interior and exterior of the church appear much the same as when the church was built in 1831, with its box, slip, and table pews. Of course, adapting to COVID-19 has meant the services today are online and in person. And on Communion Sundays, again because of COVID-19, the use of the silver communion set of 1831 is currently on hold. It's a sign of the times, but we adapt, and Presbyterians have always been able to do that. In the early days, Presbyterians were buried in the Anglican Church graveyard, but in 1833, St. Andrews opened their own cemetery. Janet Carnahan is buried in this cemetery, along with many family members of the Scottish founding families of Niagara-on-the-Lake. Janet was a local historian, school teacher, and founder of the Niagara-on-the-Lake Museum, and a force to be reckoned with, just like many of those founding families. Directly across the street from the church is St. Andrew's Manse. This is where the minister lives. The stately Georgian building was built in 1836 by the Reverend Robert McGill with his own funds. Later, it was purchased by the congregation. The basement originally included a kitchen, bake ovens, and a dumbwaiter that went from the dining room to the basement. In 1887, a two-story addition was added, and the first furnace replaced the fireplaces at a cost of $85. Today, St. Andrews stands as a living reminder of a congregation whose motto could be that of the Presbyterian Church, not yet consumed either by fire or time.